Welcome to The Change Agent, sponsored by Beyond the Glare and Kalina Vision Professional Services, where we continue to dive into real-world challenges and strategies of leadership, management, team management, leading remote teams, project management, being an empathetic leader, technology, and more. Whether you're leading a new team or you're trying to energize an existing one, we've got the insights, tips, and stories to help you succeed as a leader and to inject value fast into your organization. So let's get started. Welcome back and welcome to episode 13. I am Eric, as you know, and today we are diving into something that almost every leader, especially new ones, struggle with at some point in their career, the classic imposter syndrome. Have you ever stepped into a leadership role and thought, I don't really belong here? Or what if they find out that I'm not as capable as they think that I am? If so, you're not alone. Imposter syndrome is real and it affects the most accomplished professionals in the world. So today we're going to kind of break it down a little bit, talk a little bit about what it is, why it happens, and most importantly, how to push past that self-doubt and step confidently into your new leadership role. So let's get to it. So starting with the basics, what is imposter syndrome? Well, simply it's just that. It's this nagging feeling that you're not as competent as people think you are and that sooner or later you're going to mess up or fail or simply just make a mistake. It's self-doubt on steroids, and it can take even the most capable leaders and make them question their own skills. But here's the kicker, right? Imposter syndrome isn't necessarily tied to actual competence. Some of the most high-achieving leaders, CEOs, and professionals struggle with this. In fact, research shows that around 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their careers. I've managed large projects over my nearly 30-year career, and I can tell you that it still happens to me. I personally think that 70% number that I found in research is a bit low. I probably think it's much, much, much higher than that, somewhere in the 90s. I think everyone experiences it. So what does the onset of imposter syndrome look like as it starts to take hold? How can you recognize that it's happening to you? It's very difficult, I think, in just about any situation for someone to manage something that's happening to them if they don't know what it looks like when it's happening. So let's talk about a few of these. Maybe you have some signs that are like these three. Downplaying your successes and chalking them up to luck rather than skill. Maybe you compare yourself to other people and feel like you don't measure up to what they do or how they are or how they've become successful. Or maybe you feel like you have a bit of fear of being exposed as incompetent, even when you've clearly earned that spot. Sound familiar? So if that's the case, then you're probably in the right place. So let's talk a little bit about why it happens. So imposter syndrome is especially common for new leaders and project managers. It does happen to experienced ones, like I've mentioned about me, and I'm sure that every experienced project manager says that it happens to them as well, but it's more common in new leaders and project managers. And why is that? That's because leadership is a transition. This is when you're going from that individual contributor where your success is measured by your personal output to leading a team where success is often less tangible. These are the soft skills versus hard skills. And this is more, and leadership being more about influencing, delegating, and guiding others. In past podcasts, we talked about the major challenge to leadership and management is going from that individual contributor to leader. And the onset of imposter syndrome is one key reason why that's hard. So going back to what sparks the imposter syndrome, let's talk more about what triggers it. So maybe you feel like you lack expertise. Maybe you were promoted quickly or leading a team of people that have more experience than you. So fast promotions are exciting. They can be real indicators of your ability, your reliability, or natural leadership. But yep, you're right. It also can indicate a buddy-buddy leadership environment where promotions are based more on relationships and socializing than actual ability. But for the sake of this discussion, let's assume that it's ability over buddies. Maybe you have a fear of making the wrong decision. As a leader, your decisions affect people and their outcomes. It's very easy for someone to feel like that one misstep will expose you, but don't believe that hype. That's not true. Let me be honest with you, as I always am. If you have a manager that does not encourage you to make mistakes and to learn, you need a new manager, period. or you need to learn how to manage the manager. We'll talk about that in just a few seconds. Maybe you have a lack of external validation. In leadership, people don't always praise you directly like they do for technical achievements. You have to develop confidence in leadership from within. Again, a primary role for effective managers is to provide all feedback equally. This is the good stuff and the bad stuff. Without it, leadership is simply one-sided and it's not effective. I bet for many people listening to the podcast, they would say that my manager only communicates with me when something has gone wrong. If that's the case, again, find a new manager or learn how to manage the manager. The truth is, every leader has doubts. The difference is how we handle them and how we recognize what is happening in our world. In episode 12, I talked about accepting what you cannot change and changing what you can. How you respond to things is definitely something you have in your control. So now that we know what imposter syndrome is and why it happens, let's talk a little about how to push past that and own your role as a leader. So there are 5 practical strategies that I've come up with and collected to help you regain confidence and shut down those self-doubts and to defeat this imposter syndrome. So let's get to it. Number 1, I want you to reframe your thinking. You are a work in progress. You're not a fraud. You're not incapable. You are capable and you belong just where you are. Many people believe that leaders should already know everything about what's going on in that role. But leadership isn't about knowing everything. It's about learning, adapting, and problem solving. So instead of thinking, I don't know enough, shift that mindset to, I am learning. And that every great leader started where I am now. Also, you can, instead of fearing mistakes, recognize that those mistakes are a part of growth. Every leader was once a beginner. And the fact that you care about what you're doing well is a sign that you're on the right path as it is. Number 2, let's document those successes. Imposter syndrome thrives on selective memory. It makes you focus on your weaknesses while ignoring all the wins you've had along the way. So keep a success journal. Anytime that you've had positive feedback, you achieve a milestone, you overcome a challenge, write it down. When those doubts creep in, revisit this list to remind you of how far you've come. Number 3, focus on your strengths, not your gaps. Too often, I think leaders fixate on what they lack instead of what they already have. And so what you want to do is you want to identify your core strengths. Maybe it's problem solving, people skills, strategic thinking, technical expertise, conflict resolution, whatever the case may be. You want to focus on those core strengths. And then you want to play to those strengths while actively developing weaker areas. Don't let those gaps define you. Let the strengths define you. Confidence comes from recognizing that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about bringing your unique strengths to the table and accepting that to be a great leader, you must be a great student. Number 4, stop comparing yourself to other people. Absolutely key. Do not do it. It's not useful. Comparison is the fuel that keeps imposter syndrome alive. The longer you keep comparing yourself to someone else, the easier it is for the imposter syndrome to continue with you. You don't need to lead like other people. You need to lead like you do. So focus on your own growth, not how you stack up against others. If you admire someone else's leadership style, learn from them instead of feeling inferior to them. Maybe you can ask them to be your mentor. Maybe you can shadow them and take some notes if you have to. It's not a competition. It's about making an impact in your own way. Number 5, and final, find a mentor or support system. You're not alone in feeling like you may have imposter, like you don't belong, or maybe you can't do it. You're not alone feeling that way. Having a mentor or a coach or a peer group can help you navigate those challenges. Hell, you're doing the right thing right now, this very second, by listening to these amazing podcasts. Talk to other leaders too. You'll be surprised at how many people have felt the same way. Ask for feedback from trusted colleagues to get an objective view of your abilities. Ask, how am I doing? Those could be simple weekly meetings and maybe the first question to a meeting that you have already standing. Don't create a new meeting for this, but maybe in the beginning of a meeting that you have, just simply say, question of the day, how am I doing? And get feedback. Surround yourself with people who uplift and challenge you, not those who feed your doubts and not those that don't make you better. Every great leader had a mentor and some version of a support system, so don't be afraid to seek guidance. So as we close, let's bring this all together. Imposter syndrome is common, but it doesn't define you. You've earned your place as a leader, and your growth mindset is what will make you even stronger. So how to manage your imposter syndrome? Recap. Number 1, reframe that thinking. You're growing, you're not failing. With each task, each mistake, or each leadership conversation, you're learning something, and remember that great leaders are great students. Number 2, document those successes. Remember that facts beat feelings and facts beat assumptions. Number 3, remember, leverage your strengths. You bring unique value into what you're doing. Focus on that. Number 4, stop comparing yourself to other people. Your leadership style is your leadership style. If there were many great leaders and they were all the same, then how can they be great? Every one of those great leaders that we've had in history were great because of something they brought unique to the table in that very specific time for that very specific problem. Number 5, find that mentor. Support is key. Continue to look for ways to improve. Continue this learning pathway on the podcast that you have. The best way to overcome imposter syndrome is to step into leadership, own that role, and keep growing. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to lead and make mistakes. And don't forget to encourage your manager to be the one who allows you to make mistakes and learn. So remember, you are a leader. You've earned it, and you belong there. So that's a wrap for today. If you found today's episode helpful, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and make sure to leave a review. If you'd like more information on how to engage with me directly, you can head over to kalinavision.com. That's KALYN as in Nancy A-vision.com. And also you can catch me on YouTube at Beyond the Glare to learn more and see how we can help you and your team remove obstacles, address challenges, enabling your team and organization to succeed. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.